There is hope in the pain, beauty in the struggle, and faith in the darkness. My name is Saad Chama Mahmoud. I was born in Somalia and migrated to the UK when I was just 5 years old. My parents fled the war in Somalia and came to the UK to give us a better life. My parents were no strangers to harsh conditions and a difficult life. My mother was a nomad and shepherdess. From as young as 6 years old, my mother was waking up at 6 a.m, herding livestock to make ends meet. That life that my mum lived is far from the life that I would come to live, where my biggest problem would be moaning about having to wake up at 8 a.m. for school. Both of my parents had seen firsthand the difficult life that one lives when they are torn from their country due to war. They are my inspiration, and as I share my story of pain, struggle, and survival, I hope that you remember that this daughter of theirs reflects their resilient character. When I arrived in the UK in October 2005, I remember it was cold. We arrived from Africa only to be met with the October chills. I don't remember much, but I do remember that I did have a cultural shock, and I struggled immensely as I didn't understand the language. Throughout primary school, I struggled to grapple with the English language. I just about passed my SATs, I think. Well, I hope I did. I was about 11 years old when I took my SATs examinations. In year 7 and year 8, I was a shy, quiet kid. I didn't have a lot of friends, and friendship at that time meant the world to me. I remember I experienced my first instance of being bullied. I would come home every night and cry myself to sleep. It wasn't until year 9 that I had truly found myself, or at least my voice. I became a bit confident and developed a good, strong network of close friends. I finally found my circle. Well, it felt great. In year 9, I also became more practicing in my Islamic faith, and it gave me a strong identity and would later give me hope when I felt ill. Year 9 is where I put my head down. I almost had an epiphany where I thought, I don't want to fail. And as always, the voice in the back of my mind said, I don't want to let my parents down. Even though I took my GCSEs in year 11, I started revision from early as year 9. I had 2 wonderful teachers who taught me English and maths respectively. They nurtured my spirit and believed in me. They saw potential in me when I did not see it in myself. In moments of self-doubt, I go back to my yearbook to read what my math teacher had written when I completed high school. He wrote, I think it's important that you manage to walk on the right side of pressure versus motivation. And if you are ever in doubt, remember you are incredible. The words of my teacher stuck with me for years. It is perhaps why in part I would later pursue a career in teaching, and why I held the profession in such high esteem, for surely a teacher can build a student's confidence and morale, or they can destroy it. I did rather well for someone whose first language was not English, and who missed out on the foundational years of education. I passed all my GCSEs and with great results. I went on to college to study A-levels. Mind you, at this point in my life, I was rather happy and content. I wanted to study something in the healthcare field, and this was reflected in the A-levels that I had chosen. I decided to study biology, chemistry, history and theology in my first year. But there was a shift in me that I had noticed. I didn't pay much attention to it at the time. I just thought, college, new environment. Most of my friends had went to a separate college, you see. However, I felt low. I developed a type of anxiety when entering the college environment. These were the first signs of my depression that I failed to pick up on. Soon enough, I started to not enjoy college. My anxiety reached an all-time high to such an extent that I would go to sleep and wake up out of breath. Tight-chested and extremely fearful, I couldn't concentrate on my A-levels, and no wonder I was suffering from depression. But I didn't know what to call it at the time. In my language, there is not a specific term for depression, let alone psychiatric disorders. In came the second year of college, and my situation was beyond terrible. I dropped the sciences and picked up sociology in a year, realised maybe the rigorous sciences weren't for me after all. However, during the second year of college, my depression exemplified. I could barely get out of bed. I was still determined to do well in my A-levels, and I applied myself in that regard, but my mental health went from bad to worse, such that I was running on 4 hours of sleep a night, and sometimes I was unable to sleep at all. My thoughts were racing like wildfires. I had a surge of energy like never before. I knew at this point that I was losing it. So as you do, I went to the GP, and I remember this like yesterday. I went into the doctor's office and explained my situation to the doctor. With eyes full of tears and my heart heavy, I cried like never before and told the doctor I needed help. I couldn't live another day like this. I will never forget his reaction and his words. With a nonchalant expression, the doctor looked at me and told me, "It could take 3 months to see a psychiatrist, but I can refer you." 3 months, I thought in my head. I could die in 3 months. I wrote a poem about the pain that I was experiencing at that time, how cruel and lonely the world seemed, how I felt very much isolated and detached from everyone else. I would like to share some of that poem with you all. Mountains of pain on my shoulders I carry, yet I dare speak about my pain. Yet I know you can relate. I do not need to shout nor be bitter to get your attention, because I know we all bleed the same. Little did I know that within a week I'd be hospitalised. I suffered from a full-blown psychotic episode. It was a nightmare, 3 weeks of living hell. I was trapped in my own mind, the room that I was in morphing into my worst nightmare, the faces of my family members moulding into something of a horror movie. These visual and auditory hallucinations made me feel like a bystander within the realms of my own mind watching out. I never felt so weak, so vulnerable, and so petrified to my absolute core as I did in those 3 weeks. My recovery was steady as I was put on medications and sought therapy for my mental health. I knew at this point that my life would never be the same again. And it wasn't, as my illness did return again and again. And after each episode, I felt mentally and physically exhausted. I thought I had no strength in me to continue to fight this illness and to enjoy living life. However, I've come to realise, through much pain and grief, through many tears and endless breakdowns, that life is worth living, despite the pain which one goes through. That although what I've gone through was weighty, I told myself that every time I did have the strength to get up, I would do so. And I'd be grateful that I have an opportunity to do what I love and to spend time with the people that make me happy. The poem continued, "But my dear, your struggle is your survival. Your courage and your fortitude will be the legacy that you leave behind." I took a break from traditional education for a couple of years to work on my mental health and to really figure myself out. What did I really want? What was I passionate about? During the summer of 2021, I went back to my home country in East Africa to work at a school there. I worked as a quality control officer, and this role really broadened my horizons, and it made me be appreciative and thankful of what I have. It also inspired me to pursue a career in teaching. But I didn't just stop there. I started to explore other areas of interests and hobbies, and I loved the idea of having a small business. So from there, Waisco was born, which is a small-scale business that specialises in gifts for seasonal occasions and celebrations. I also opened up a poetry page talking about my experiences regarding trauma, healing, and faith, and was taken back by the responses of those who followed me. Often at times I would get messages saying, "Thank you for putting into words how we feel," or "I felt the emotion in this piece." From setting that poetry page up, it made me realise the impact that words have on people and how the right words can touch someone's heart and make a difference. From being in that hospital bed to being able to pursue the goals that I wanted made me realise that I had a second chance in life, and as painful as my experience was, I wasn't going to let the pain of it stop me from excelling and striving to make a difference. At the core of it all, it taught me that kindness speaks volumes, that all that people really want is to be heard and to be told, "I feel your pain, I know it hurts, but you'll get through this." Despite our collective pain and struggle, together we can make this world a more kind, compassionate, and empathetic ground for people from all walks of life to live in. I've learned that as part of this process, healing is not linear. It does not matter the length of time that goes by. When something traumatic happens to you, your brain does not forget. Too often, I found myself trying to fix my life so that it resembled what it was like before my illness. But after going to therapy and learning the art of self-compassion by being more creative through writing poems, I've learned to make peace with my past, or at least try as best as I can to make peace with my past. However, throughout this whole process, I've put a lot of emphasis in giving back. Aside from creating a poetry page that tries to somewhat encapsulate the pain that we all go through as humans, I threw myself in voluntary works that empower people, especially young people. I work as an ambassador for EY Foundation, which is a charity that works with young people from low-income backgrounds to get paid work experience, employability skills, and career guidance. I worked with them on several projects, most notably the Third Sector's online conference in 2020, an Ambassador Story, and I've also been one of the nominees for their Young Ambassador of the Year award in 2020. Another organisation that I passionately work for as a member is Sisters Corner Al Furqan. This is an organisation in the heart of Manchester that caters especially to women. It organises social and educational events and workshops. I love the work that this organisation does as it provides a much needed safe space to connect with like-minded women. I strive to fulfil all my endeavours with excellence, and I try to apply this ethos in everything that I do. I want to make everyone feel heard and valued. I believe a great leader is formed, not born. This is the kind of leadership style that I value and try and implement in whatever project I pursue. I want my work, my business, and my creative endeavours to be in service to the people, to be a voice and a positive difference for all those who are a part of it or who are impacted by it. This is the message that I want to leave behind, that pain does not kill you, rather it makes you strong, and that your story has just begun. What a tale will be told of you when you are gone, that the fire that was meant to burn you, in your glory, arose from the ashes and won. Thank you.